So welcome everybody to this evening's LGFA webinar. It's great. It's lots of people are out coaching at the moment, which is fantastic. So we are recording this webinar tonight. It will be available on our LGFA YouTube channel from tomorrow on. My name is William Harmon. I'm National Development Officer for Ladies Football, remit for coach education, and I'm joined by my colleague in County Down, Kieran Murta. Would you like to say hello, Kieran?
Good evening, folks, and how is all keeping? It's good that we're out on the green grass of home.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, it's great to be
Brilliant.
Yeah, and
Brilliant.
I know, Kieran, you're involved with the under-13s this year. I'm involved with the under-11s this year. I'm also coaching an adult team as well. So looking forward to getting back onto the pitch again. You know, it's fantastic. It's great. So look, guys, it's well, the webinar started at 8 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. It started at 8 o'clock. We'll be about 70 minutes long. We won't be any further than that. It may be a bit less. But also tonight, what we want from you now tonight is a lot of interaction, communication. When you're in the chat function, make sure, guys, that you make sure that you hit panelists and everyone, so everybody can see your comments. Because we're going to go through a lot of scenarios tonight, so we want your interaction and your learning as well. So let's learn from everybody tonight in relation to our topic. Look, if you have any issues with sound, just leave the webinar and come back in, but we will be utilizing the chat function for the majority of the session. So what is our specific topic tonight? Our specific topic is being inclusive, how to cater for all ability levels in a coaching session. So tomorrow evening, or in 3 days time, or when you're out coaching again, what kind of things can you take from this webinar that may assist you in, I suppose, and cater for all different ability levels in your session? No matter what age group you coach, no matter what level you coach at, there's always players that are at different stage of development, and that's okay. So just how do we kind of maximize that and get everybody to reach their potential? As I said, my name is William Harmon, and I'm joined by my colleague in County Down, Kieran Murta. So the outcomes and what we're going to try to achieve from this webinar is, again, we just refresh our minds on the role of the coach. What is our role? This is refresh our minds in that. We won't hit that in too much detail. We look at a variety of strategies to promote inclusive coaching sessions. Now, we'd love to hear from you as well, because there's excellent work being done in clubs in terms of this area, in terms of strategies and processes and policies and stuff. So please share your ideas as we go on throughout the session. And then hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be able to list your key ingredients of making a session more inclusive. But let's start off. And I suppose, Kieran, what we'll do is I'll hand you over to yourself. Now, I'll manage the chat for you. But let's start off with this one. Let's see what's the story.
So guys, so just in the chat function, what is your view, or what is your meaning in terms of inclusion in your coaching session? So, well, let me you just start off between ourselves. But how do you see inclusion in terms of your coaching philosophy or coaching sessions?
Yeah, and I suppose as people put in the chat function, please, guys, in the chat function, share your thoughts on what you think the meaning of inclusion is from a coaching context. But I suppose, Kieran, the term inclusion, I suppose, can get many reactions from coaches, like the word and the language around this area of this wording or terminology of inclusion. And then if you add on the lack of confidence of some coaches in terms of running inclusive sessions. So how do I adapt something? How do I modify activities? Could affect coaching behaviors. So what is inclusion? I suppose when we hear of inclusion, we sometimes think straight away of maybe it has something to do with, I suppose, liaising or working with people with disabilities. But I would think it's more than that. I think inclusion, to me, Kieran, this is just my opinion, is inclusion is about making every player feel valued, making every player in your session feel they belong to something, making every player in your session feel that they can develop to their own stage of development. I think that's inclusion to me, that like all the activities you put out in the session, that everybody feel they can participate in and everybody can get the same experience. To me, that's what inclusion is in a coaching context. I don't know what's coming through the chat, Kieran.
Just to backing up what you're saying there. Well, just on tonight's session, it's fresh in my head, and at a panel of 13 young boys, because we have, as I told you earlier on today, we have two teams, and the other team was playing a game. So I played a scaled game, and during the game I just observed some of our less developed players, and I've done a wee bit of coaching them one-to-one aside in terms of they were struggling with the pick-up and getting their head up, getting their toe underneath the ball, their hand position, and bringing the ball into the body. So I done a wee bit of coaching them, let them go and practice skill in pairs and then went back to the game again, and really focused on that there, because some of the pickups during the wee game that we're playing, they were fumbling the ball, they're falling over themselves. And as I said to you earlier on, there may be team they're the so-called less developed team, or the B team. I don't want to call a child or any team the B team, but I'm going to work that big group of players this year and give them all my time and my time to develop them as best I can. And you could see just the wee nuggets of information I was giving them tonight. And again, that's how I was including, and there's varying ability levels in tonight's wee game and the 13 players, but it was how you spot and fix, how you use the head, hands, and feet, and just great to see in the chat function straight away about nobody leaving nobody out. Everybody can develop as best they can. Everybody must be included in all activities.
And I like Colette there.
No matter what their ability.
Exactly. And look at Colette there. She's saying, that idea of feeling valued, feeling. So actually, I'm delighted with the comments coming through the chat function, because I felt that it might have, some people have different thoughts and ideas. So I know they all attending our LGFA webinars, maybe, Kieran, maybe they're getting a better understanding. But being inclusive to me, and as you highlighted yourself, is that everybody feels valued, feels part of something, and feels that they're developing within their own stage of development. So that was a good kind of, it's great to see that there's a good understanding of what inclusion means to him in a coaching context, in terms of coaching. But the role of the coach, and just kind of, it's important, let's remind ourselves of what is our role. Our role, whether you're going to be coaching tomorrow night, and I hope you're looking forward to coaching tomorrow night, because I was coaching last night and I can't wait till next Monday night. But our role at the end of the day, guys, is to serve, okay? It's to serve, it is to support and enthuse our players. We're there to serve so that they can become better at the game of football. We're there to support them, to help them achieve their goals. And we're there to enthuse them, to motivate them. So if we as coaches inspire our players, motivate our players, and encourage them to reach their own potential, I think we're doing an okay job. And I think that's inclusive. I think if you get players to develop that love, Kieran, and sustain that love for the game, I think you're on a good winner. I know this is a lot of, I suppose, terminology that comes from Lee Moggan, who's one of our key coach educators. But I think these three words and that ability to inspire and motivate, encourage players, to me, that's inclusive, if you can achieve that.
Because if your enthusiasm is from word one, from your warm up, and that sets a tone, and you have that interaction with your players, that ability to get down to their level, be it under 6, under 8, right up to senior level, you can make a lasting difference on a child's life, both on and off the sporting field. And as coaches, guys out there, you're doing such a superb job, and never underestimate such a valuable job that you're playing in their lives, because who knows, William, what support they're getting at home in terms of their confidence, or their what's going on in their home life and school life. And that hour and 15 minutes with you in the football field can make such a difference to their child's development, both socially, physically, and mentally.
We don't know what backgrounds people are coming from. We don't know what experiences they have. So this is key, is about knowing the person, get to know the person. And you know what? If you don't win no trophies this year, guys, but if you serve, support, and enthuse your players, if you inspire them, motivate them, encourage them to develop that love for the game and sustain that love, you're doing a great job. We're just kind of reminding these key things. But let's go through this. In our LGFA YouTube channel, we did a lot of webinars on these key coaching skills and coaching principles. So we're not going to go into these in detail. We're just reminding ourselves of the basics of coaching. So the last slide is about the player, the person, knowing the person, and our value in that. But here it's important that we continually plan, do, and review. If you continually think about what you're doing, okay, you do the session, you can reflect on it afterwards, then you're going to be inclusive without even knowing it. You're going to be inclusive without even knowing it. Because to me, inclusion is coaching. And I know that may sound strange. To me, inclusion is the same as coaching. If you're coaching well, you're going to be inclusive.
So well, probably just on that, sorry, a lot of the coaches out there are probably naturally doing this anyway. And they're probably doubt themselves. And geez, I come on to hear William to maybe reaffirm I am or I'm not doing it, but they're probably doing it naturally without even thinking that they're including everybody in their coaching sessions.
And maybe we're overthinking it, Kieran. So if you're building reports, saying hello to players, asking players how they're feeling, how are things going in their school or whatever. That's building rapport. That's the person. Then the coaching skills of you're doing excellent demonstrations. And we'll go about that in more detail when we come to the scenarios. Your explanations are sharp and snappy, whereby the players are active more times than standing around listening. And they're involved. So we're looking, observing. That's the key to coaching, looking, observing. These are key coaching skills as you as coaches. If you do these well, the ideal principle, if you build rapport with the person well, like fun games at the start, a fun game at the end, you are being inclusive. So I go back to that point. Being inclusive to me is coaching. If you coach well, you're going to be inclusive. I've no doubt in that. But maybe a coaching skill that you're not too more familiar about is the step bar model. So when you're introducing a skill or an activity, you'll use the ideal principle. You'll introduce it. Today, we're going to work on the hand pass. You show a demonstration. You give 2 or 3 key teaching points on the head, hands, feet. You let them at it, and then you look, observe. But if you want to modify or change an activity or drill, then we use the stepper model. And if this is the only thing you take from tonight, then you're on a winner, because sometimes we think we have to do something totally out of this world to change something. But if you just change the space from smaller to bigger, maybe if you go over the time, so 45 seconds to 1 minute, that's a different intensity level. Maybe the equipment, less equipment, more equipment. We'll go into these in a few minutes on the scenarios in more detail. Do we need less players or more players? Do I need more help or less help? Do I need to change the rules of the task to make it more inclusive? So the stepper model is a real good coaching skills that you need to be aware of if you want to be more inclusive in your sessions. And we'll go through these in a few minutes now in more detail, and we'll pose a lot of scenarios out to you.
Just on that, well, just people always like hearing stories relating to our games. 2 weeks ago, when we were first allowed to go back to our games up here in the 6 counties, in terms of equipment, I brought a rugby ball for a wee bit of variety in our session, and the boys, one of the boys' parents who I'd be friendly, said, Kieran, Owen came home buzzing. He used the rugby ball. It's good for handling. There's a bit of crack. And it was our 4th session back. And as well as says, guys, vary your equipment. This year is a bonus. Like, going through a pandemic has passed 12 to 18 months. And as well as says, try different things out. Give things a go with your players, your coaches. Try things out and see if they work. And hold your hands up at the end and ask your players, did you enjoy the session? What did you get out of your session outcomes? And just another one on tonight. Well, I had 11 players in my training session. I played a 6v5 game, and I give the less developed players, the team of 6, I actually give them 5 seconds on the ball when they were in possession, and I give my team of 5. I knew they were a wee bit stronger, and this is only after 2 weeks. Knew they were a wee bit stronger. They were only allowed 2-3 seconds max in the ball. So there was a wee bit of grumbling. Why is that team allowed 5 seconds carrying the ball? But that was me giving the less developed team that wee bit more freedom on the ball. So it worked out great, and was just giving examples of how we can modify our equipment, our players, and their timing on the ball as well.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent, Kieran. Excellent. Okay, so we're probably going to deal in more detail as well shortly. As you're all aware, over the last number of weeks, the Gaelic Games family launched their player pathway, which is now the one player pathway across all 3 associations, which is the GA, the LJFA, and the Camogie Association. And basically what is it saying? It's saying basically that we as coaches, everybody here tonight, our job is that every player, irrespective of age and development level, should be given the opportunity to participate in Gaelic Games. So what's that implications for us as coaches is that we need to be aware of the person, the stage of development they're at. And Kieran, you were very much aware of the stage of development your players are at and the potential they can reach. So therefore you layered your kind of conditions to meet that. But we need to be aware as coaches of the level of training that we adopt is appropriate to that stage of development. That's all you need to know in terms of the player pathway. But from a philosophy point of view, what is the player pathway trying to achieve? The club is central, but we as coaches need everything we decide to do has the player at the center of our decision making, always. So everything we do with the players at the center of decision making. What activities will we do tonight? Things like that. We will then bring quality coaching experience. Going back to my key coaching quality skills we spoke about earlier on. Ideal principle, stepper model. If we as coaches introduce them in our sessions, then we're giving quality coaching experience. So now the players are getting a quality coaching experience because you're applying the key coaching skills to your sessions. And because you're doing that, you're building a connection. And that is key. Building a connection is key because you're making sure then you're ticking all the boxes in your session if you're thinking about all these things. But by doing that, you're going to be inclusive. So go back to my point earlier on. Coaching is being inclusive. Good coaching is inclusive. You're all tonight probably doing all this stuff very well. And if you are, brilliant. If we can give you one or two more ideas, even better again. So this is what we're trying to achieve. We want more players stay in our game for longer. But we need to connect with our players, know our players, quality coaching experiences, apply the coaching skills, and you will be inclusive. So that's the point we're trying to make. In 2012, we changed our rule in age football. We want our membership to be open to all, regardless of their age, their ability level, gender, race, beliefs, socio-economic status, and so on. So what we're saying here, guys, is that, we're open to everybody. Anybody that comes in our gates, we want to have you involved in our game. And therefore, how do we create the environment that achieves that? So before we go on to the scenarios and we get your thoughts and feedback, and when we look at other scenarios you may have, look at coaching inclusion and do they look the same? So to be a good coach and to be inclusive, you need to create a feel-good environment where players feel stimulated, they have fun, they're challenged appropriately within their stage of development, they're with their friends, they're getting good positive coaching from you, a good experience, and they feel good about themselves. Remember, I asked the question earlier on, what is inclusion? Inclusion is about feeling good about themselves, feeling a belonging, and they are developing within their stage of development. And they want to come back next week. So if you do a session tomorrow night, you 30 players, you're going to have 30 players a week after, unless there's a few away or they can't make it. So you want them to excel, that sustain, that love the game, and be involved in our game for longer. So I'm going to just do a poll before we go into the scenarios, guys. And if we were to ask you, your coaching philosophy currently, how you coach currently, does it promote being inclusive? And the question I would ask you is that if you were to rate yourself out of 10, where would you rate yourself in terms of knowing your players, good coaching experience, or good applying the coaching skills equals being inclusive? Where would you be in that spectrum? Would it be 1 or a 10? And be very honest on that. So there's people coming through here, Kieran. Interesting. So we have about 50% have logged it so far. Interesting, guys. Be very honest. So where are you in that coaching skills, knowing your players and adopting an inclusive environment or quality coaching experiences? So we've about 60% voted so far. They're still coming through. But Kieran, it's looking like about 40% are saying 7 out of 10, which is not bad, Kieran. It's not bad,
you know. Good return, yeah.
So 40, 50, 60. So I'd say you're talking about, I'd say 60% of the participants tonight feel they're a 7 or more, which is not bad, which is great. So well done, everybody. That's great to see. That's great to see. So we'll end the polling. So I'll share the results with you there, guys. Hopefully you can see them. I don't know, Kieran, can you see the results?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Brilliant. So just to let you know, I wasn't just making up the staging them. No. So what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to go through scenarios. Okay, we're going to go through various scenarios, and we want you now to be active in the chat. So we want to think about what would you do in this scenario? How would you advocate? Myself and Kieran will give a few ideas as well, and we'll learn through conversation tonight. But also you might learn from someone else. So when you're in the chat function, if you've come across a scenario and you've done something or some strategy, share it with the rest of the group in the chat function, okay? And we'll chat through these. So the first one here, guys. So you have a group of, say, 24 under 14 players. We're saying 24, but you might only have 12 under 14 players or 15 or 16. A large majority of them, or half of them, are competent players. They're able to work off both sides of the body. 10 are deemed competent, but they're not as, they can probably work off one side of the body. And then the remaining footballers, they don't worry, they're motivated. They love coming to your sessions, but they don't what? They just like being with their friends, and they're always laughing and joking, and maybe don't take things as serious as the other players. How would you deal with this scenario? So guys, in the chat function, have you ever come across this? And what do you do in your coaching to, I suppose, work with deal with this scenario? So Kieran, I suppose, what would you do in this scenario? I suppose it's about, I suppose, a question that come in terms of, do we stream the players? Do we put all the players with the same ability together? Do we mix and match? What's your thoughts on that, Kieran?
Personally, well, this actually it had happened to me over the past few weeks, and we had a couple of characters, if you like, who were just there for the fun and the crack. And you're, as a coach, you're trying to be conscious. You don't want them taken away and spoiling it for the rest of the guys who maybe are there for developing their skills and they want to develop themselves as footballers. But in the same boat, I tailored the session that day so that the 7, 8 guys who I knew were just there for recreation and fun and crack, that they are being challenged at the same time. But the more developed players, they're getting the challenge as well. It's a tricky one to do, and it happens in every club, the length and breadth of our country. So it's what your thoughts? Well, how would you feel this?
So I think it's important that you mix and match. So some people think that you just always put the so-called perceived stronger players together and the so-called together. I would mix and match. So yes, in some of my sessions, I would probably put in terms of ability level. So I would put players, they'll all do the same activities. They'll all have the same experiences, but they'll probably be in their own groups, catering to their own ability levels. But I would also every now and then mix and match. So what I would do is that I would mix the groups up whereby the perceived stronger players are with the perceived weaker players to challenge each other. So I think it's important that I would think streaming players and keeping the same players all the way through a season, I wouldn't be an advocate of that. There's no right and wrong here, but I would, yes, in some circumstances, have the ability levels catering in some sessions, but I would mix and match in other sessions just to keep variety and challenging players, because players need to probably work with players of different abilities as well. So therefore, it's challenging in that sense. So I would mix and match there, Kieran, and I would challenge them accordingly.
Yeah, well, so if a player, you would move a player up, okay, to a higher ability level, but you wouldn't move a player down.
But no, what I would do there if I'm doing my training is that I would have mix and match. So therefore, I might have 4 perceived stronger players or 4 perceived weaker players in a group, and we're playing a game 8v8. So the team they're playing have 4 perceived stronger players and 4 perceived weaker players. So therefore, it's an even game. They're mixed abilities, and they're all challengedly appropriate. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I would definitely think mix and match is the way to go. That's just my opinion, Kieran.
Yeah.
But coming through the chat, it looks like mixing and match. I think Declan there in St. Columns in County Cork, how are you getting on? Very good with some and ask very good to mentor them a bit, get more developed to work on their weak side. And we'll speak about that shortly. So most players are competitive, would like to be challenged. So I'd mix and match. I think, Kieran, would be the advocate, and it seems to be coming through the chat.
Most people are saying that, yeah.
Okay, next one. Let's look at the next one, guys. You have 40 children in your nursery, say, or say you have a large cohort in your group, but you have 4 assistant coaches, or you might have 2 or 3. How do you manage the whole group to set up activities so that all kids are challenged? And think about this now. This is important. So how can we be inclusive? How do we have the right coaching practices, the quality coaching experiences to ensure that we have everybody's involved? So Kieran, I suppose what I would do here is I would ensure here in this situation is that a scenario is not happening. Think about this, coaches, and please in the chat function, what you do here is, how many times in sessions do we have the lead coach, Kieran? And the lead coach knows exactly what he or she is doing. And they're there and they're delivering session. And they have 2 or 3 assistants. And the 2 or 3 assistants have the clue. They know what station they're in, but they're lost. But they don't know what their role is, or they don't really know the activity. To me, being inclusive, I think that could be detrimental to being inclusive coaching, because if their assistant coaches don't know what their role is, what activities they're doing, they're going to find it very hard to adapt and modify their activities as a result, and therefore may not coach the players accordingly. Would you agree or disagree with that, Kieran?
Yeah, and that probably comes back to planning from the start and your communication with your assistant coaches in terms of what role you expect from them. Because as you say, well, if you have 2 or 3 coaches standing around and they don't know how to break the skill down or break the activity down to help the more challenging players or the less developed players, it's going to be very confusing for both the assistant coaches and the kids will be standing looking lost. The session will be just drag on. The kids will want at the end, the assistant coaches will want at the end to get out of there. So it's clarity and information and what you want your assistant coaches to do and how to coach.
Exactly. And I'm involved in under 9. So today, and this is true, I sent out our plan for next Monday today to our assistant, to our coaching group. So the plan is going out today of what we're doing next Monday.
Yeah.
And everybody's aware of their roles, but it helps them plan secret on, because they know now that they're going to have max 8 coming to them at any one time. They know now that next Monday we are going to mix and match in terms of the ability levels. So now they can think about, right, if I'm doing knockout solo, okay, maybe I might just modify the rules with this group, or I might challenge the,
Yeah, the next
they
group
can think
coming,
about, so that's been inclusive as a result, because they're thinking and planning. But if they turn up, they don't know what their role is, they don't know what their activities are doing, they don't know what groups are coming around, then how can they be inclusive or adapt their session or their station to being, I don't know, is that, I suppose
it's probably important, well, on my opinion as well, that when the next group of kids are coming, you're 8 or 10, whatever they have, when you've broken them down, that the coaches know what, in terms of level of ability they have, so that, right, William's passing me on the next for the, say it's a kicking station, whatever it is, that I have to modify it straight away before the kids coming. If they challenge them, that they develop their non-dominant side. So whatever it is that the group of your coaches are communicating after the session, saying, William, say a group of 7 or 8 kids there, they can do X, Y, and Z. They need to be challenged a wee bit more next week. And then that the groups are breaking down before training is actually started, so that the kids know straight away, I'm in that group, I can move from A to B, and there's no confusion from both the children's point of view and the coach's point of view.
I think that's excellent. And just that, guys, just think, let's share ideas here. Come on, let's share ideas. So what we do, Kieran, is I always have the groups laid out beforehand. So I know who's what bibs. So they get the bib as they go in. They know what group they're with, well in advance. So the coaches know well in advance what groups are who's in what group, so they can plan accordingly.
Yeah,
as
Kieran
you said
Keen's
there,
putting that there, planning ahead, so each group,
huge.
each coach knows what they're doing in their station. Communication, like the parents and all the coaches, vital. Planning is a key word, and communication is coming up an awful lot in this.
And you know what, Kieran, with that, and I know a lot of people going, I will, sure, that makes sense. But we don't do it enough, Kieran. I don't think, to be inclusive, let's go back to the point I made earlier on. To be inclusive, you need quality coaching experiences. Quality coaching is being inclusive. A part of that key is the planning, is your ability to plan. So therefore, but also your fellow coaches. And sometimes we don't think about our coaching group, because everybody needs to know what they're doing so they can be inclusive. Okay, I'm a new coach from a parents' registration. I've been aware of 2 parents of 2 children of various learning difficulties. So you had a parents' night, guys, or you met a few parents and they've informed you that, my child, is a various learning difficulty. They may have autism. How would you deal with this scenario? So, Kieran, how would you deal with this scenario? Because I know you probably experienced this recently.
I did, as well as involved with the under-13s. I'm involved with the under-5, under-7 group in my own club, my own child, and it's we're back 2 weeks with the city before, and I just noticed from the club registration that with just one child, and he was autistic. So week 1, guys, to be honest, it was a bit of a challenge, because week 1 is madness, and any first training session back with 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. And when I noticed just when I was talking to the group, that the eye contact, the concentration skills of the child in question, I knew straight away from, without even approaching the parent, I knew from the registration. So it was important that my fellow coaches knew what role they had to play within it. And one of the parents, I briefed one of the parents, my helpers, that this child needed that one-to-one. We're doing it discreetly, well, so we weren't singling the child out. Obviously, need that one-to-one support and guidance through the warm-up, and through in terms of doing the spatial awareness and movements, the balancing activities, so that they were sort of not standing on the child's toes, but just within the earshot, and without that the whole time, that they could support the child in a discreet manner. So having that one-to-one support with the children with learning difficulties, I guess, here is key as well. It helps the whole session.
I think that's important. But let's go back to what we're learning. And I think Garrett says here, get more information. The more information you have is key. But even the fact of you knowing that, okay, you may need an extra hand here. Maybe this child needs, will need a more kind of support and one-to-one. That allows in the coaching session to be quality, because because you know that child's getting the deserved attention that they require to make sure that their experience is positive. Okay, and it allows you to give the other players the desired attention they required to get the what they want from the session. So everybody's winning. But the idea of making sure you need extra assistance,
Mhm.
therefore that's key. So I think that's even important. But so having the information is one, knowing the players too, and then having the support network there to support those players is vitally important.
Well, great
So
comment here in the text box. Just one of the Justin says, get to know the parents, what comforts the child, what triggers their anxieties, and have they an activity passport, something that they can relate to, and something that autistic children really sort of. I know colours is a key thing with autistic children, and that's very, very important as well. It's a very, very good point from Justin there.
very good, excellent, Justin. And this keep sharing your learn. That's brilliant,
Yeah.
Justin. You don't realize how many people are learning from that excellent interaction there. So well done, and that's a great point. I know one or two players are always anxious coming to my sessions. So therefore, I make sure I connect with them when they come in the gate. I beeline for them to say hello to them, just to make them feel comfortable. Okay, scenario 4. Let's go to scenario 4. A player's having this difficulty seeing all the cones or the boundaries in your session. How would you deal in this scenario? And has this ever happened to you, Kieran, whereby I suppose the color cones number one, and I suppose players are finding difficulty to probably see what they're saying. Well, can you share?
Yeah, just when the coaches are in the chat function there. Well, Sunday passed the crazy under 5 and under 7 session, so obviously with our pods of 15 still, and we're doing that type of work. So I had the nursery group, the 4 and 5 year olds. So I had a white zone marked out with my cones, and then down at the other half of the field was the red zone with the under 7 group. So I was doing a bit of movement pattern with my players in terms of where they're meant to move, their spatial awareness, their turning the everything that you want, their pathways. Next minute, 4 and 5 year olds were in the red zone. Well, and probably my clarity and my introduction, okay, I didn't demonstrate what zone they're meant to stay in. And you can't blame. They're 4 and 5 year old children who their imagination just, Kieran says, stay within the cones. But the red zone was down the other half of the field. And I had to go and, like herding sheep up here at home, but I had to go and chase 4 and 5 year olds back into the white zone away from the red zone.
It goes back to your ideal principle. You should have demonstrated, Kieran. You should have demonstrated. Be more clear in your instruction. But also, if you even think about for adult players, I remember in a session, I had all white cones. So I was saying, right, guys, we're going to work within the 4 white cones. And sure, we're going, hey, what you mean? 4 white cones? Where are they? There was confusion. So obviously, the same color cones could cause confusion, and probably. But also, we got to be aware too that a lot of players, 1 or 2 players, may have a visual impairment. So therefore, maybe say they mightn't be able to see the green cones in the grass. So therefore, as what you're saying here, Nicola said, use the higher cones. The higher cones, excellent, and different color cones that are more visible. So we just have to be very wary of our group. That maybe I know another group that whereby the white ball kept hitting them in the face. And the kind of dust at night, at night time or in the night sessions, the white ball kept it. We're wondering why. So we asked the player, well, what's happening? She says, I can't see the ball. I have poor eyesight, she said. So what they did was they changed from a white ball to a yellow ball, and it worked wonders. But you see how you can just a stepper model and just changing the equipment could make such a huge difference to the experience of that player in that session. So well done. Good stuff. We'll keep it going. So scenario 5. You have separate activities, but you notice a few players are struggling with the execution of skills. So do you know the way, guys, you set up a station or a drill, and you know that 1 or 2 are just struggling with the skill. They're struggling, they're not getting it, or they're just maybe dropping the ball. How do we deal with this scenario without probably disrupting the activity? Kieran, so how do we make that player feel still part of the setup, but how do we kind of, I suppose, work with them to make them, I suppose, feel belonging and that valueness and all that?
Yeah, so, it's important too, well, that we don't want to single the child or 2 or 3 children out. So it's probably being discreet and I called having as you talked about earlier on, looking and observing, I called up here the coach's eye. So how you can spot and fix, go in, do a wee coaching clinic maybe at the side of the field, get one of your assistant helpers, say, listen, William, there's 2 or 3 kids here. I just want you to work on the head, hands, and feet. Just break it down individually for them. Let them try it for a few minutes, 3, 4 minutes, whatever it is, and then gradually ease them back into the activity without the other kids noticing. And again, that wee one-to-one support, that wee coaching clinic is very, very good. Again, if you have the manpower and the help to do that there. And again, it's something. How would you approach it, Will?
Yeah, I think the looking and observing is excellent. So go back to our coaching skills. If you know what you're looking for, head, hands, feet, then if you see a player struggling, okay, then you can give them the specific feedback. So I would go over, Joe Dave, I always say that you're waiting at least 30 seconds for the next ball anyway. So I would go over within that 30 seconds and give one key teaching point to help them. And I would just stay with them till they get through the drill. So give them that key teaching point. So it might be keep the eye on the ball. It might be if they're doing a solo, don't dip your shoulders or your upper body. It might be follow through on the kick. So I think if you know what you're looking for in your coaching skills, then you can give specific feedback by looking and observing. But if you don't know what you're looking for, then how can you help that player? But I would do it in a seamless fashion. Now I would do it whereby let the activity still run and try and give the feedback while the activity is going on. But I like your idea of the coaching clinic as well. But I wouldn't put out one player. I'd bring out a group of players if I was doing that, Kieran.
Declan actually on the chat function again, where it says how to slow the thing down, break it down, give that player or group of players that are struggling a few key coaching points.
Excellent.
As Declan says, it only takes 1-2 minutes, then integrate them back within the full group again.
Good demonstration. Give another demonstration. Go from a different angle. So the key coaching skills.
Super, Declan. That was great.
So excellent. Well done. So we're all learning from each other. We're going through them nicely here. Okay, now this is another scenario here. You set up a small-sided game. And remember we spoke about earlier on. So next week now in my session, we're going to have a mixed abilities. So we're mixing the abilities. They're all going to be playing in their similar groups, stations. But when we come to the games and stuff like that, or the non-contacted stuff, whatever, we're going to have mixed abilities together. Okay, but if we're playing a game, right, and you notice a few players are dominating the game. You know yourselves, guys. You know your own sessions. Give the ball to Mary and Joan and let them run up and down the field. And sure, you think you're going great, but sure, no one's getting maximum benefit out of that because the players who are dominating the game are not being challenged, and the players who are not getting the ball are obviously not getting challenged. So how do we deal? How do we maximize participation? How do we challenge everybody that they're being challenged and they feel they're getting it's the same activity, same experience, but how do we challenge them? Let's look at the stepper model. Kieran, what can we do in this situation here?
Yeah, well, so say it's a wee 4v4 game, whatever the case may be. Well, personally, what I would the time in terms of the stepper model, time straight away, I would give the less developed players more time in the ball.
Okay.
And your more advanced players maybe 1-2 seconds the ball. Okay, in terms of the space, the playing dimensions, you can maybe zone it if you need to be. That you maybe take your so-called stronger players, I don't like calling the stronger players, out of the middle zone with them. So you're giving your less developed players that better chance up the middle, so the ball obviously goes up and down the centre of the field, so that they're getting more touches of the ball.
Okay, very
I
good.
would make it a rule. There has to be in your rules within the game. Listen, guys, the ball must be passed, say 4 times before you can go for a score. Okay. It must go through the middle zone. It must go out to the right. It must go out to the left, depending on what you want to achieve during the game. So, using the stepper model, I would the space, the time, and the rules of the game. You could modify there.
Yeah, I think the rules. What I would do here is I would do the rules one. So therefore, I would probably give and this is important. I would actually tell the players before the game, guys, I'm going to give specific conditions to specific players because we're here to develop and chat. So I would be very upfront with that. I wouldn't hide behind that. I would tell players, guys, certain players here are going to certain conditions. Why? Because I'm going to challenge you all in different aspects. So for the more dominant players, right, you only have 1 hop or solo, or you have 3 seconds of the ball, you said, Kieran. Or everybody put up their socks of their dominant leg. So the shall I say the dominant players kick off your non-dominant leg. But I know you're kicking off your non-dominant leg because I see the sock is up. So I know which leg you should be kicking off. And the girls who are probably still progressing, developing, okay, you can kick off your dominant leg. So then the rules of the task are probably making sure everybody's maximizing their challenging their ability, if that makes sense. So the rules. So I like that sock up, sock down. So put up the sock of the dominant leg. Okay, I'm going to see you. I know if you're kicking off your non-dominant leg because you should be kicking it with your sock down. So just ideas about it, but I would be very transparent in what I'm doing. I would tell the players before the session or even before the activity, this is what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because I think if players know why, there's no issue. If they don't know why, I think there's an issue in that one.
Well, to give you an obvious scenario, myself the other day, we had an under 13 challenge game, and again, it was the so-called B team. I don't like calling that. So one of our key players out of the A team as such came to the session, and we says like Paul. His name is Paul, and he's a talented player. His younger brother plays for down under 17 inter-county last year. So this guy could play at under 15, under 17. But I cut a long story short, but we put the young guy in nets, and we asked the young guy at halftime to talk to the players, because he's that sort of guy. He's very, very modest. He doesn't see himself as an A player. He talked to the players at halftime, the 6 defenders that were in front of him, just to give them, because he's, as I say, he's a very highly skilled player. He talked to the 6 defenders at halftime about their positional sense, because this is the first time on the big field after moving from under 11 to under 13. Well, and he talked to the group of 6 players about where they should be moving, their communication with each other, running down the lines, support, just all the things. I thought it was great that young fella took that on himself to talk to the 6 players before they came over and the coaches had the word with him.
And I think from a girl's perspective, I think it goes back to the other point we're talking about, knowing your players. So obviously you knew your player. You knew that your player was, comfortable with that, was able to do that, So I think when you know your players, you can then apply other challenges. Wow, that's actually developing leadership skills. But I think it's once you know your players, you can apply those certain challenges, which is fantastic. Another good sharing of a good idea. Okay, we've 2 more scenarios, and we'll wrap it up then. In terms of this one, and guys, if you have any other scenarios you want to put to us, put them in the chat function. We look at them later on. There's no problem. 3 youngsters, so you have 3 new players that come to the session. They're friends of children in the group, and they're completely new to the sport and the activity. So how do we make sure that these players still, I suppose, are integrated into the group, but also developing their skills in terms of here? And I think it's important that we integrate the players. But what can we do here? So how do we make it inclusive? How do we make the experience positive for them? What I would probably do here, Kieran, is, if I knew there was someone new coming to our session next week, I would probably set up a little buddy system whereby I would make sure that one player is aware that Mary's new and Sheila's new. Do you know what? The 2 or 3 of you guys, you're going to make them feel comfortable today. You're going to talk to them. You're going to say hello, how are they getting on? You're going to make them feel. I think that buddy system is something that we would introduce for that inclusive, that they feel part of the setup, that they feel, the minute they
Feel
come
comfortable in. From day one. Is
there anything else you would try there?
No, Claire? It's a very, very good point, because when they come through our doors, as you said, when we changed our constitution in 2013, we want people of all abilities, all backgrounds coming through our gates and making LJFA their number 1 sport that they want to play. So they're leaving that atmosphere. They're saying William Harmon created such an atmosphere there for me today. He made me feel special. He made me feel just as important as the key players on the team. And they're going home and they're selling that story to their parents, to the guardians at home. And then that's a knock-on effect to other people in the community and saying, yeah, you go to Friars LJFA, they're such a warm and welcoming club. They've got me included from day one. It's just something that they want to be a part of. So yeah, it's a tough one as well, because some of their friends may be more developed. Well, but as you say, the buddy system is a good opportunity to nip that in the bud from day one.
Jane, we'll answer that for you, Jane. We'll go to, I've written it down here. So Jane, no problem. We'll answer that in a few minutes for you. And then just go back to the point there about, a player couldn't do the skill level. I just experienced, just came into my, in one of my experience, one of the players had dyspraxia, and I suppose therefore their coordination won't be as good as other players. And if you're making an assumption about the player, you might think, oh, geez, sure, they can't play the game at all. But if you know the player and know that they have dyspraxia, then you know that your demonstrations and your explanations, you need to tailor that to suit. So therefore, when you're doing your demonstrations, you do them on the side so that the player can see the same view you can see. So it's just important that we're aware that we're not making assumptions about players. Okay, that we need to get to know the player, understand the player, and then adopt your coaching principle and apply it the same. So well done. Last one, and we'll come to your one, Jane, about the disruptive players in a minute. And this really is just something like, I don't know, have you ever come across this in your coaching session? So a parent approached you to inform that their child is not really confident in coming back to train today. The parent informed that the main reason for not attending was because the child had lost confidence in themselves. Last week, one of the coaches said that, the child, she should be able to execute the skills by now. It's her 3rd year involved. So basically, the coach said to her, Kieran, Jesus, you should be able to do that solo by now. You're here 3 years, and actually knocked the player's confidence.
Yeah.
What do you think is important that we're learning here, Kieran?
Yeah, well, probably as a coach, maybe that sometimes coaches make flippant remarks and maybe they don't mean them well, out of context, and probably the coach maybe should have had a word with the player one-to-one, maybe obviously giving a few coaching points in terms of executing the kick pass and giving them a few wee pointers in terms of the heads, hand, and feet, and not making that bold statement in front of the group, because them statements like that can turn a child off. And it says, as we said, it's the last thing we need is any young girl leaving her field, going home and telling mum or dad about the coach and the poor coaching experience and the environment wasn't as holistic as we want it to be, because that's a very, very important thing as well, that we have a holistic, open environment where all our kids are made feel equal.
Yeah, I think. Well, I would think number one is, I suppose, for us as coaches tonight, from being inclusive, is in terms of our terminology and our language we use in sessions. Sometimes we feel, we need to be aware of the receiver, how the person receives it. Okay, you might have said something like that, and you could have said it in a jokingly way. Sure, you're here 3 years, you should know, but you don't know how that information's being received. So it's vitally important that the language we use, that we are aware of the receiver. So how does the receiver receive that message? Okay, and that's key. So if we're learning that in terms of our explanations and how we go in terms of talk to players, it's vitally important we're aware, because girls in particular are very sensitive, and they're thinking about what you said more than probably what the boys would do. So it's very important we as coaches just be very much aware of our language we use and how they receive that information.
And well, that goes back to knowing your players,
100%.
knowing what sort of, you can have a joke and a bit of crack with one player, and then the other player maybe have to be a bit more refined, and
Exactly.
you have to watch your tone, your terminology, what you're actually saying to them. So yeah, knowing your players and your rapport, your players is important from day one.
100%. And the coach may not have realized it, but I think it's important that they're aware of it, so that therefore they're learning from it as well. Okay, and just sorry there, Kieran. Yeah.
Sorry, Declan made a good point there in the chat. He says, coach need to apologise to the parents and also invite the child back in the next session, and clearly that know the child they're important and you really didn't mean the comment.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes the bigger person to hold your hands up and say, I was wrong, I apologise in front of the group. And it's hard for an adult to do out there, but sometimes it is the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. Now we'll just touch this in terms of coaching style, and I suppose we'll just go through this fairly snappy. In terms of, you're going to have various in your sessions, guys. You're going to have various players at various ability levels. You're going to have the highly motivated, the player that comes, guys, and they've all the gear. They've all the gear. But you know what? They probably couldn't kick the ball over the bar to save their life. But then, but they're always there, and you know what? They love being with you.
Just watch what you're saying there, Will.
Yeah. Do you have the player who's highly motivated and highly skilled? You're the very good player, Josh. She's very good attitude, highly skilled, can work up both sides. You have the low motivated, low skilled. So therefore, you know what? They don't feel confident about themselves. They have low self-esteem. They feel they're not good enough. You know what? They're not really good at their skill level. You have the low motivated, high skill. So the one who is very good, but you know what? She's at every session, but she just doesn't look interested. So I suppose we as coaches need to be aware of our coaching style. So if we were in the chat function, put in the number that you're going to give your feedback on, and just highlight what would you try and do to probably inspire that player or guide that player, support that player. What would you do? So put in the number, and we'll go through them here myself. I think in the highly motivated, low skill, Kieran, I think what's vitally important there is that you guide them. They need direction. If they're highly motivated, low, they need a bit of direction. Come here now, just focus on something. Keep your focus on that and guide them to. I think that's the way to go with that player, really.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
Highly motivated, highly skilled. I think this is the player again. It goes back to kind of conditions of the game again, like you did there with your player, where you gave him another role. They went in goals and they were to speak to the player. You delegated out a small bit of responsibility to him, Kieran. I like that idea of that you're giving him more of a responsibility. You're delegating that kind of responsibility to them. The low motivated, low skill, what we would say here is, guys, be very direct. So what we're advocating here is, if you see a player and Josh is just, when they do something well, you nail it. Give them the praise they deserve. If she just kicked 1 point over the bar tonight, you nailed that. So now she knows what it feels like to achieve something, to accomplish something. And you have the low motivated, highly skilled. So the lowly motivated, highly skilled, you need to inspire them. You need to find out why are they there. They're coming up for some reason. They're there because they want to be there. But what is motivating them? Why are they there? Find out more about that player. But I suppose the point we're trying to make here, Kieran, is that one coaching style doesn't suit. You're going to have 20, 25 players. You're going to have, I suppose, you're going to have to guide some, delegate to others. You to inspire others. You need to be direct with others. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's that coaching style, knowing your players and when to adapt or that. And I suppose these players could change these boxes as they go around in a session too. You know, they might be highly motivated one session and lowly motivated another session. So really, that could fluctuate as well, Kieran. What's
And
your
that's
thoughts on that?
well, that's the beauty of having the team and having a panel of 25, 30 girls. Everybody is individual in each in their own way, and everybody's got their individual qualities. And it's how you, as your coaching style, get the best out of each individual girl, and collectively the team will work well as a unit. Then
Jane was saying there about disruptive players and you know, players are disruptive. I think, Jane, I'll just give you my experience, Jane, and maybe it might help you. But I think it's very important from the very start to outline what is the expected behavior of everybody. And I would think that that should come from the players. Now, I don't know what age group you coach, Jane, but I think it's very important that if you're with an age group, maybe under eights upwards, or just ask players, go around in small pods and ask themselves, what do you expect of our team? What is expected of us as a group? And it's the research shows that girls are more likely to buy into their own rules. So if it's the group that came up with the rules, they're more likely to buy into those sort of that team ethic and that group ethic. So I would think number one is you need to be clear from the very start what's the expected behavior of the players, but you also get the players involved in that process. Number two, I would say, Jane, it's vitally important you're a role model. So if your expected behavior of the players are X, then I think the coaches need to demonstrate that on a regular basis too, by being respectful, by that's the key to the whole thing. So I would think disruptive players. I don't think singling them out or asking them to do laps works. That's because you're highlighting that, you know what, they're going to be all, oh, look at Jane going around the field, they're all laughing at her. That's, I suppose, highlighting that, you know what, that, you know. So I would say is, guys, if they're disruptive, if they're very disruptive, then obviously you have to have a chat with the parent and have to chat with the player in terms of that, and then what is your code of behavior in the club. But I would say, I would ask, get involved, get the players involved in the what's expected behavior of them, put it on a one sheeter for them, you know, make sure they're aware of it, continually review or highlighting in sessions, and that should work. If it's too disruptive, then I definitely think you need to link in with the parent and the player and just find out why. Why is she being disruptive? And find out more on that, and maybe we can help her probably get over that angle. I don't know, Kieran, is there anything
well,
you want to say
that
there?
sort of leads on to Frank had a question as well about girls not listening when the coach is demonstrating and talking, and they should be listening. What would you do? And again, reaffirm what you're saying there. Have a code of conduct or a contract that it's not drawn up by William or Kieran Murder, that the girls sign up at the start of the year. You sit them down in your first initial team meeting. Girls, this is what we're trying to achieve this year. We want to do X, Y, and Z. You need to have good discipline, good listening, good communication, good respect for each other, good respect for the coaches. Because at the end of the day, you're giving up your free time 2 or 3 evenings a week, and you're trying to give them the best of your time and the best for all the girls' development. And if it's there in black and white, I can say that Sophia, Geraldine, Sharon, there you go. Like, you're constantly disrupting our session. This is the last thing we need. And it's just having when the rest of the players are maybe doing a wee game or activity, having a wee word with 2 or 3 of them, saying, girls, like, come on, what's going on? You know, we're all here for the right reasons.
Exactly.
We want to have fun. We want to develop. A few rotten eggs is going to spoil the whole lot. But if you talk to your players and then you better understand, and as you say, well, get the crux of maybe what's maybe frustrating them. But someone could be frustrating them.
Ask them straight out. Yeah, ask them. Maybe you're talking too much, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm only joking. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, like, what the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, ask them why. Why are they being? But also, I would say, Frank, and try out this is that, and then we'll move it on to the final few slides. Is that say nothing, be quiet, silence. Silence is deadly. Silence is uncomfortable. So as a coach, say nothing. Be silent. I guarantee you they'll get uncomfortable and it'll stop very fast. Right. But I think definitely, again, it goes back to coaching practice, coaching skills, and making sure that we keep players active. If we're talking to them as short and snappy, we have a reason for stopping it. So therefore, everything we're doing is sharp and snappy. To finish off tonight, guys, what we're learning here in a nutshell is that knowing the person Executing the coaching skills to the highest of your ability in terms of ideal principle stepper will be making you an inclusive coach. So that is key. Knowing the person and having those coaching skills at the highest level will make you inclusive. We've done a webinar on this. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but the key to a good inclusive session, lads, is the planning. Ask yourself all these questions before sessions. You will be okay. Trust me. About group management, how many coaches I have, how many players I have, who am I going to put with who, how am I going to match players up, how is it going to work out. I'm telling you guys, that is the crux of it. So we've done a specific webinar on this on planning, layout, and review. Give a look at it. But planning is vitally important. When you're doing and you're implementing a session, we would advocate small groups where possible, in particular in ladies football. Girls, if they don't like probably being, I suppose, in front of groups and probably being highlighted in front of groups, some girls don't like to ask questions in front of large groups, so they might ask questions in smaller groups. They'll ask their peers because they mightn't understand what you said. So Frank, they mightn't get you in what you're doing in the bigger macro level, but they'll ask questions in the smaller groups. So smaller groups promote interaction, enjoyment, involvement. So I would advocate small groups where possible, guys. Always promote that, and always continually review what you do, guys. How did that go? Was every child involved? How did Mary's be quiet tonight? I wonder why. Joan was a bit disruptive tonight. Why was she? So we're asking all these questions constantly. If you continue to plan, do, and review, and if you continue to plan, do, and review using the coaching skills, like here the ideal principle, or even the stepper model, you will do a high quality coaching experience. If you have a high quality coaching experience, you're going to connect with your players. If you connect with your players, your sessions are going to be very inclusive. So it's very simplistic in that nature. So it's very important. But if I was to ask you now, based on our chat, okay, if I was to launch the poll again, okay, and I was to launch the next poll, how would you now feel in terms of being inclusive? A lot of you, I think it was 60% odd, were going saying we were very inclusive, six and above. Now, based on our chats and our general discussion, where do you see yourself on that scale in terms of being an inclusive coach? So, still good for people coming through. Again, hopefully just one or two little nuggets tonight might help you in terms of, I suppose, being a more inclusive coach. Knowing the person, applying the key coaching skills, ideal principle, and in particular the stepper model will help you with that. So it's looking like, Kieran, that if a few more might come through there, guys. It's looking
scores
like
on the board.
Scores on the board is right. Yeah.
What was that show? What was that show?
So it's looking like, I'll just put it up here. I know a few more to come through.
Because relationships are just like, relations are very, very important. They're key, aren't they? Your coaching relationships, and that player to coach relationship is
huge.
Can be the difference between
huge.
Between.
I would say there, Kieran, coach relationship, guys. If you can get a ratio of 1-8, and I think the lower you can get it 1-6, 1-7, 1-8. If you get like in our under 11s, it's 1-8. You can be more inclusive as a result. Your sessions can be catered for all ability levels, can make sure that everybody has the same experience as everybody else. They can feel valued and feel belonging, and they all can develop to the relative stage of development. If you have the right coach to athlete ratio, but also you have all your coaches knowing what they're about and what their job is, what their activity is, to help them plan accordingly to it. All right, Kieran, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So look, guys, as I said on our LJFA Gaelic website, we've loads of all our Pell magazine activities are up there. There's loads of skill booklets, nursery booklets, resources on the GAE learning website, loads of activities on how to, I suppose, modify activities and everything. They're all up there as well, guys. Please, in your own time, when you get a chance, give a look at them. But on behalf of myself and Kieran, we hope you enjoyed tonight. In the chat function, could you put in what's one thing you took from tonight, or if you have any questions, we'll try and answer them while people are going through there. It's vitally important, guys, that we know that there's a check for understanding that you took something from tonight. So please, guys, we like to hear from you. Derek, a few years ago, I had a young girl in the team who was always at training and matches but didn't improve at all, didn't seem to want to play, and want to stand still and want to be on the pitch. She drifted away because she kind of got isolated from the rest of the squad who annoyed her perceived lack of effort. Very couple of sessions, every couple of sessions she used to bring buns. Only found out a few years later that she used to get up at 6 a.m. to bake them before school and have them ready for training. I was shocked and disgusted. I didn't realize at the time and used it to make her a valued member. That's excellent, Derek. This bias, this unconscious bias that we have, this, perceive. We always say perceptions lead to poor judgment. So if your perception leads to judgment, so if you have a poor perception, then you're going to lead to poor judgment. They are nails, Derek. Like understanding the player, knowing the player, and value the value she has. She may have no interest in the sessions. She may have no, but she got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to bake buns for her teammates at training. Unreal. I think, Derek, thank you very much for sharing that story. It's a fascinating story. Kieran, I would like to thank William. No problem, guys. We hope you enjoyed tonight's session. We'll be up in the LGFA YouTube channel tomorrow. We hope you took one or two little nuggets from tonight. And go what, guys? When you go out to your sessions tomorrow evening over the coming days, enjoy yourself. Try a few new ideas. They'll either work or they don't work. Keep that communication high with your fellow coaches and enjoy yourself. And your players will enjoy yourself. So, Kieran Jones, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, there's just one question there. Whether just the coach doesn't want me to name them. A coordinator under 10 ladies team wants to have pods based on ability. What is your stance on this?
Yeah, I think it's
back to what we talked about at the start.
It goes back to the start. I said there, guys. I have no issue if you want to put in certain sessions where you put pods into as ability, but I don't think you should keep that every session. You need to mix it up, mix ability. In order to get better, in order for the player who's perceived, again, to be this perceived weaker player, in order for him to get better, they need to be challenged. They need to be playing against better players. Then, for the player who's perceived to be stronger, they need to be able to adapt their game to be able to play with players who are perceived weaker. So they need to adapt their game. So you're challenging players in a different place. So I would say, don't be pigeonholing players into boxes too early, shall I say. Mix and match. There's no problem doing primitive similar abilities in some sessions, but I would say mix and match and have that balance would be the best way to go. That's just my opinion.
And plus, well, you don't want players getting ahead of themselves at a young age, perceiving I'm above Jessica, I'm better than Sophia, whatever the case may be, because you want our players being grounded from a very, very young age.
100%. So, Kieran, on that note, I want to thank everybody for tonight. Geez, an hour flew. It absolutely flew. But thank you very much, Kieran, for tonight.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you very much, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the session. And best luck with the rest of your coaching sessions over the coming weeks.